All right, we are live. Okay. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. First up on our agenda is pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So next up is approval of the minutes of September 27th, 2021.
Point of order, please.
Yes, sir.
We all passed by the door and came in that said that masks were required. And I noticed that at the last meeting, there were some differences of interpretation about what that meant around the room. And I see there are some differences in interpretation today. So I was wondering whether or not somebody from the administration might be able to inform us what is meant by that. Are there specifications about how one is to wear a mask in this school?
Yes, I can address that for you. What we require is a face covering. Most of them are 2-ply or better. We require that the mouth and the nose be covered in order for it to be properly worn, in order to protect everyone from particles.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure not everybody was familiar with that, so now everybody's had a chance to hear. Thank you.
All right, very good. That's what we should be doing. Okay, continue on. So did I have a motion on approval of the minutes of September 27th? So moved. We have a motion from John, we have a second from Earl. Any discussions, corrections, or otherwise? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of September 27th, 2021? It is unanimous, thank you. Next up is approval of the roll of accounts dated September 23rd, 2021, the amount of $111,459.88. And dated October 7th, 2021, the amount of $398,799.37. And dated October 13th, 2021, the amount of $11,368. And dated October 21st, 2021, in the amount of $83,445.51.
Move to approve the roll of accounts as listed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussions, questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the roll of accounts as presented? That is unanimous, thank you. Report of committees. Do we have any committee reports?
Adult education will have something for the November meeting.
Okay,
We just had our meeting at 4 o'clock today, so.
all right, very good. I guess under this, I'll report on the Main School Management Delegate Assembly that was Saturday morning. Not quite the 5 hours it ran last year, but it was 3.5 this year. But fortunately, technology made it so that while my wife was driving, I could stream it on our way to New Jersey, to Rhode Island, and was able to tune in and vote accordingly. So with a few edits and so forth, amendments to the articles, they were all approved. So anyway, that's all I have for that. There's no other reports of committee. Public comment. I thought we were moving this on the agenda. Oh, okay. I had suggested if nobody has any objection, I was thinking we ought to move the public comment down after the superintendent's report. And the rationale for that is that We would get public comment before we transact any business. And maybe some of the administrators and superintendent reports might answer some of the questions or comments that might, concerns that might come up in the public comments. So that was the thought process behind that. So if there's no objection, we'll move that later in the agenda.
That's going to be a permanent move, correct?
I think so, yeah. We can move it whenever, but that was the idea. We'll see how that goes. We can move it as we need. So we'll move that behind those administrative reports. So first up, administrative reports. So I'll start with Mr. Briggs this time. He's front and center.
All right.
Music.
Try that.
Test.
Point of order, we still don't have everyone wearing the mask according to the direction that was just provided by the superintendent.
Okay. Well, I can't quite see everybody, but if you're not wearing your mask according to the proper protocol, we ask that you do. Okay? I'm not seeing any that don't, so
Okay, thank you, it's been corrected.
thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Preble's at the Assistant Principal Conference in the Samoset. They had the option of in-person and virtual this year, so he's attending that. He will not be with us presenting with Mr. Bell and myself. A few highlights here. We've had parent-teacher conferences last week. We are halfway through the trimester, which is remarkable. Great turnout. We had additional parents reach out to team members after the conferences, so great reports there. The after-school activities are still ongoing. Our math team met on Friday, their first meeting, so they're very excited to continue with math meets virtually and depending on the situations. 26 students participating in civil rights. That was a Friday afternoon meeting, so the involvement is just fantastic. We have rehearsals for drama tomorrow with our new advisor, Mr. Meneses. We've got Student Spotlight coming up. That'll be Friday at 7:45. We'll be recognizing students and staff for both their academic achievement and respectful and responsible behavior. So we're excited to recognize some students. Our faculty leadership team will be meeting tomorrow to discuss curriculum meetings. And I won't steal Michelle's thunder, but Michelle's meeting with some departments. And we're going to discuss the next steps with our data with Iready and MWEA testing. As well as discuss the influences on learning that I presented last month with student engagement and student achievement. And finally, I'd like to share some very positive news. We're very excited to announce that our nurse, Mrs. Tammy Diaz, has been nominated for Life Changer of the Year. Life Changer is a national program that recognizes educators for the positive difference they make in the lives of their students. Mrs. Diaz is a shining example of positive influence and leadership in our community, and we're very proud of her. If you go to lifechangeroftheyear.com, you can support her nomination. And it's pretty user-friendly to go on the website. And we're very excited to announce that. So we've been announcing it to our student body each day. And I can provide more information for our website to recognize the wonderful work that Mrs. Diaz and really all of our nurses are doing at this time. Any questions? Thank you.
Sounds good, thank you. Mr. Bell.
I'll try to keep my comments brief, as you're going to hear enough from me about our NEASC visit later on. But first of all, I wanted to recognize our first student of the month this year, Alyssa Spalding, a sophomore. The important thing I want to point out is she was nominated by 5 different teachers, which is pretty amazing that separately they all put in some remarks for her nomination. It's very well-deserved recognition for overall school citizenship as well as her academic performance, and I couldn't think of a better choice. Well-deserved. Our NWEA and PSAT testing is pretty much completed. We have a few more makeups to do. Jason mentioned briefly about Iready math assessment that we gave to all of our freshmen through juniors in their math courses to just give us another data point on where our students are at, so teachers can look at it to really develop plans on how we can move them forward in their math learning. So we have a few follow-up meetings to go. together along with some Iready trainers that are going to come in and help us really understand the resource that we have and how it can help us improve instruction for our students. So there's a lot of work being done there. And again, I will continue with my NEASC update later on in the agenda.
Very good. Any questions from Mr. Bell? Very good. Mr. Burbine?
Right. Well, this week we started our playoffs in athletics. Currently, our boys soccer team is still playing. We had 2 young ladies qualify for the cross-country state meet on Saturday, and football will be playing Saturday too. Looking ahead for winter sports, I did want to mention that Waterville and us are exploring adding another co-op partner to our hockey program right now, because unfortunately, we're in trouble numbers-wise. Winslow, I put it up on announcements for anybody who's playing hockey for us. We had 4 people come to me. Yes. I think she's got many more people. So we have approached Lawrence and Scott Egan about adding them to our co-op. They haven't given us the answer yet. In the past, Lawrence was committed with Miranda Cook, and I think they feel some obligation to stay with them. But we do have a numbers issue, so it's something we're looking at. And on the girls' side, we added what made so much sense geographically. We added Brewer to our co-op. I joke when I say that, but we're the most northern school in the state of Maine, and Brewer had 2 young ladies that wanted to play hockey, so we accept them as a partner. Realizing it will be a big commitment on the parents' part, do a 60, 70-mile ride every day down to Augusta for practice, but we did welcome them. So looking ahead, hockey is one of those sports that we definitely are losing numbers short term. Hopefully, with the Alphonse Center having an ice hockey rink, that'll bring numbers back, but it won't happen overnight. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea on when the rules are going to be finalized for winter sports?
We still don't even receive schedules yet. At this point, we're still waiting on schedules. And then at some point, we'll have to make some local decisions, which will involve Chad and Peter. We're going to have to come up with the local stuff. We've had preliminary talks, but nothing concrete. Some schools, it looks like it could be a mixed bag. Some schools may go without masks in indoor sports. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of schools that go requiring masks. So we'll definitely have those discussions real soon.
Is the football game home or away?
It's on. If we keep winning, we'll host the next 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And we go with Mrs. Gallup.
One more thing I forgot to mention, okay, he's married, my wife's gonna kill me. Field hockey's playing Wednesday too.
Oh, she will be.
If you watch Mary, sorry.
I think I just saw that TV move around.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Thank you, Chad.
I got some favor.
Chad Bell saving marriages all around. That's what I do.
All right. So at the beginning of the year, we had advertised for some interventionists with our COVID funds in hopes of adding to the interventionists we already have at school. Unfortunately, we ended up with no applicants for those positions, so we did re-advertise them recently, and we were really fortunate. We were able to find an interventionist who had 13 years of intervention experience in another district. They had to move for life reasons, and they landed close to us, and they applied, and they were a fabulous candidate. So you'll see them on your list tonight. But I'm pretty excited in the world that we live in that we were able to get somebody as great as we were able to get. So that's good news. We've been working to complete assessments. We have completed Iready, as mentioned by both Jason and Chad. We also have completed DRAs. We're working our way through the NWEA. The data that we get from these assessments is used in a variety of ways. It's used to inform instruction, general instruction in the classroom. It's used to plan for our interventions and help identify those students who need interventions. And it's also used to identify the needs for the building as a whole. And so once we've collected all that, I hope to present at the next meeting, our WES goals for you for our building. This might already be common knowledge, but we have a significant sub shortage. So if you know of anyone who would like to be a sub, send them our way. We know it's the same in other buildings in our district and other places around the state. But we are having to utilize all of the resources that we have within our building, including interventionists and administration. I can tell you I've been the computer teacher a couple times, 5th grade, 2nd grade. So we're pulling all the things that we possibly can pull to make sure that we can keep all of our students in school. But certainly if you should hear of somebody who would like to come work at an amazing elementary school, please send them our way. During our recent early release and workshop days, teachers worked on a variety of things, including the Iready training, as mentioned before, planning for our general education interventions, using data to plan instruction, and also some Google Classroom work. We will be having virtual parent-teacher conferences on November 8th and 10th. And the last thing is on October 13th, we hosted a book fair parent night. We were able to host that outside under the portico. And Heidi Murray, our librarian, reported that it was a success. And I can tell you, because I saw lots of people there, that was in fact a success. So we were pretty pleased to be able to bring a little bit of normalcy back to our building. That's all I have for you. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much. All right. I guess we'll start with Kyle.
Mrs. Gower has it covered, and we've got her covered on both sides.
On both sides, all right, so we're good. All right, Michelle, she's getting up ready to go, so we'll go with Michelle.
Thank you. I have a couple of updates for you from the curriculum perspective of our school year. The first one is that the Department of Education let us know, I think it was Friday, that they're giving a 2-week extension to the new WIA testing window, both in the fall and in the spring. And while I think the high school was mainly done, the elementary school will benefit from that in terms of makeup and kids that are absent, kids that are quarantining and so forth. That gives us more time to make sure we're assessing everybody. And they let us know now that we will have the same extension in the spring, so that will be helpful in our planning. So I put that on our curriculum website under the assessment page as an update for anyone who's checking that. I'm working presently on the performance report for fiscal year 21 title funds, where we account for our spending with those funds and share data that we gleaned from work that we did around title. So that's been going on. And thankfully, Mary Boyle has been coming in to tutor me through that performance report. That is due next week, and we should have it finished by Friday this week. As mentioned earlier, I'm hosting curriculum meetings, K-12 curriculum meetings, beginning tomorrow. We'll have all day tomorrow, all day Thursday, and we will do it again in March. So I've invited department chairs from each discipline, as well as some elementary teachers. Unfortunately, because of the sub shortage, we will not be able to have all the elementary teachers that I had anticipated come, because they just can't and we need to keep our building open. So we will move forward without them. I do have the specialists, the Title I specialists coming, and I can speak to some of the disciplines as well. So we're going to move forward as best we can, but I'm excited to be having those conversations starting tomorrow. This winter, I hope to introduce PLCs to the faculty. And you have a handout about that. I'd like to see if we can pull some groups together. This is voluntary professional development, looking at the Visible Learning series by John Hattie. This series ties into conversations we've already started this school year with accelerated learning and high impact strategies for teaching and so forth. So I've purchased the books in different disciplines, and I'm hoping to pull together small groups and start that program this winter. And I'm going to launch that idea with the faculty this week when we have our curriculum meeting. So I've made a little commercial advertisement, and we're going to see if we have any interest. The content, the new website that I created, I'm working on the content specific pages and hope to still have that ready for spring. And I will be having the K-12 curriculum meetings will also help inform what we put on that website. So those are being built now. I'm excited about that. And last but not least, our new teacher teams have been meeting monthly, and this month we're going to be teaching them about Marzano, our framework for instruction, and then next month we'll be learning about iObservation, which is the tool we use when we do performance evaluation of the faculty. So the new teachers are being brought up to speed with all of those things. So that's the work that I've been doing presently. Any questions? Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, Kelly.
I have nothing to report. Everything is great in my world right now.
Right now, you make it sound like that might change.
Nope, we're still in good shape, believe me.
Yeah, snows, yeah, freezing temperatures.
We're in good shape.
All right, very good. Does Will have anything for us on the technology front?
I'll say no news is good news.
All right. We'll go with that. Mike, do you have anything for us on the WEA?
Yeah, just a couple of quick hitters. Just very briefly, the Winslow Education Association did send 2 letters to the superintendent requesting information that would be beneficial for our negotiations coming up. The central office complied with that very, very quickly, and we thank them for that. And we are now preparing for those talks. And remember, we have both contracts to negotiate this year, which is not normal, but it's happened before. And we are hopeful, and our expectation is that we'll start those talks in early January, like we normally have, and we'll get back to you with more on that. The second thing I wanted to say, 2 months into the school year now, is just how proud I am of our members. Last spring, I think we all thought that this was going to be a much different school year, and it is different, but it's, it's not normal yet. And it's really just a case of constantly problem solving and adapting. Because you never know who's going to be in front of you. You don't know how you have to deliver instruction, maybe up until the last second before a class is being taught, et cetera. And our members have been just fantastic and creative in meeting students' needs. And I hope that the board, I know the board realizes that, and I hope the public realizes that too, that all of our members are doing fantastic work. So I just want to say that I'm really, really proud of them. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks so much. All right. Everybody. Amanda.
I'm very quick, so I'm going to stay right here. 30.96% of the fiscal year has gone by. 32.39% of the budget has been accounted for. If you remove encumbered items, 31.40 has actually been spent. Not much has happened in the last month or so.
Okay, nothing to get too excited about then at this point. That's good. All right, any questions for Amanda? All right, thank you very much. Superintendent's report.
Amanda says there's nothing to get excited about. That's a good thing. We don't want to get too excited about any of that stuff that she's reporting out on. I don't want to steal any of Chad's thunder because he is going to talk about this in a few moments, but I did want to publicly thank Chad, and I want to publicly thank the teachers at Winslow High School for their work on this accreditation. It is an incredible amount of work. It takes a lot to look at your schools, look at your practices. You always think you're doing a good job, but you never really know until you get an outside eye looking in and giving you some feedback. I've been around long enough to know that these accreditations don't always go as well as you'd like to have them go, and you don't always hear what you want, what you think you're going to hear. During the 2 meetings that I was able to sit in on with the faculty leadership team, some members of that, and with the board, I was very impressed, very pleased with the feedback that I heard. Clearly, the accreditation team was extremely impressed with the work and what they were seeing as well. The board, that particular night, they asked you several questions, and you went into that cold. You had no prep at all for that. And I will tell you that I was truly impressed by the way that you responded to those answers. The following day, in meeting with the visiting team, they said that was one of the best board gatherings that they had ever worked with in terms of your responses and knowing what's going on in the school. So that's something for you to be proud of as well. So thank you. MSMA Fall Conference, 28th and 29th this week. It's virtual. Joel and I are registered to attend those sessions. I did send a few links to some of you for some of the sessions. I don't know if they'll let you in because you're working off from my link. If they won't and you have time, come over to the central office and we'll do it together in the conference room and you can view it there. I thought several of those sessions were very appropriate for some of the things that we're dealing with.
Do you know if they're gonna table them?
I don't believe they tape those.
Okay.
Yeah, no, actually they do.
Really?
Yes. I think they're available, like, if I remember the date, I think until the 19th of November, they're available through the link that we'll have. And it might not be accessible to you directly as not being signed up, but through our sign up, they're possible to be viewed. So that's one of the big advantages of this year as it was last, that you don't actually have to be there and you can gather the material. Well done.
Thank you, Joel, for catching that. Mr. Thurston just mentioned negotiations. He is 100% correct. We have 4 contracts to negotiate this year, actually. 2 of the ones that he mentioned are 2 of the bigger ones, which are the educational technicians and the teachers. The other are the secretarial contract and the food service contract. So we have 4 to negotiate this year. Last Monday, we were asked by Dr. Shaw if we could meet with the superintendents throughout the state. So there was a Zoom meeting with Dr. Shaw. The main purpose of the meeting was for him to clarify some information on the standard operating procedure, because there's been a lot of questions regarding some of that procedure. So he clarified it. I was very pleased to hear that the things he clarified are the things that we've been doing. So no real news there for us. So it felt good to hear that. The other big announcement that he wanted to make and make sure that everybody in the state heard was that he wanted to alert us that the vaccinations for students in age group 5 to 11 were on the verge of being authorized. The FDA's vaccine and related biological committee is meeting on October 26th.
That's wrong. But the vaccines are bad. I mean, that's just so wrong that they're doing that.
I'm just giving you the information that's going out to the
I hope
state.
you investigate deeper.
Okay, thank you. And so that's the information that he wanted to give us. So then the CDC's Committee on Immunization is meeting on November 2nd and on November 3rd. Dr. Shaw felt strongly that the jurisdictions should be ready to offer the vaccinations to students in ages 5 to 11 thereafter. He's asking all schools to work cooperatively with the Department of Education to offer COVID vaccination clinics. And he's asking for those families wishing to have their students vaccinated. This is voluntary, it's not mandated. Our nurses are working with the DOE to set up 2 clinics. If we are successful, the first one would be on November 18th and the second one would be December 9th. The other thing that I want to report on, and Erica alluded to this, was the incredible effort that's being made by all to make this year work. We currently have shortages in all areas. On any given morning, you can look at a list of substitutes that the administrators are trying to patch together to make the day work. I remember one day Kyle Price had a list of 12 to 14 people that were out in his building. And it was all hands on deck because you couldn't find people to do some of the things that needed to be done. In addition to that, we have shortages in bus drivers if they get sick. We've had Kyle Price drive a bus. We've had Shelley Phillips sitting back there drive a bus. Yes, they are licensed bus drivers, but they have full-time jobs doing other things as well. My point being, it's all hands on deck, whatever it takes to make this year work. We have constant holes every single day that are being patched. And we're doing it so that students can be here 5 days a week because we understand that that's the best learning environment for our kids. So the other thing that I would bring to your attention is that you continue to receive the generic emails from me. Those generic emails are designed to A, inform you that we've had a case, B, tell you exactly what the case is within the first sentence, C, to let you know that if you're reading it and you haven't been contacted, then your family is not involved. So that's the reason. Also, to keep it on the radar, that cases are still occurring in this district. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment.
When you want to talk about it.
Okay? So, as of October 25th this year, from the start of the school year to right now, as of October at the start of the year up to October 25th, we have had 80 cases district-wide from the opening of school. 80 compared to 51 all last year. But keep in mind, you have every single student here every day, 5 days a week. Last year, you were in a hybrid model with half the kids here every other day. So clearly, you had less of an opportunity for exposure. You have more this year, but that's where we are with cases. The breakdown, we've had 44 at the elementary school. At the high school, we've had 24. And at the junior high, we've had 11.
My question was, I like what you've done there. Can we have a breakdown per month at the next meeting and then see the progress?
You're gonna see, John, is you're gonna see more cases. It's not going the other way. But what I want to explain, what's important to explain, is the next part, and that's this. And I just want to do a quick example here. Pretend this is a class. You're all in my class. Every single one of you is my class. I'm the teacher. I get sick. Let's say none of us are wearing masks.
These don't work.
Let's say none of us are wearing masks. According to the law, according to the regulations we need to follow.
Excuse me.
What would happen in this particular case if none of us were wearing masks and I got sick, all of us in this room would have to quarantine for 10 days, all of us. Add another layer. Add mask. According to the CDC guidelines, if you're all wearing a mask and I get sick, same scenario. Mr. Burgoyne is 3 feet from me, Mr. Bell is 3 feet from me, Mr. Thurth is 3 feet from me. These individuals that are 3 feet from me now need to quarantine. The rest of you don't because you have masks on. So I've just eliminated all of you from having to go home. Take it one step further. Vaccinations. Let's say you're vaccinated. Same scenario. Mr. Burgoyne's vaccinated, Mr. Bell isn't, Mr. Thurston isn't. Mr. Burgoyne, if he's not sick, can stay, doesn't have to be quarantined. Now these two need to be quarantined. Take it one step further. These two say, I don't want to be vaccinated, but I want to be in pool testing. They get involved in pool testing. Same scenario. Nobody goes home. There's nobody. They're close contacts, but because you're vaccinated, because you're pool testing, and you're not showing positive results in the pool, we're able to keep you here. That's essentially how it works. That's how we've been able to keep kids in school and staff in school. So if you look at this situation, prior to pool testing, junior high case, we had 13 close contacts, all 13 had to be quarantined. This is just an example. I'm not giving you times because we need to protect the identity, we need to protect the confidentiality. Elementary case, prior to pool testing, we had 1 case, 17 close contacts, all 17 had to go home for 10 days. Pool testing gets started. I'll give you one example of a junior high case. You had 26 of a case, you had 26 close contacts. Out of those 26, 2 needed to quarantine because 24 were either involved in pool testing or they were involved or they had been vaccinated. So 26 close contacts, 2 ended up having to quarantine. High school had a case last week before, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 individuals tested positive. You had 43 close contacts. And out of that case, you had 2 people who actually had to quarantine, 4. Still, it's huge. However, at the elementary school, we recently had a case that involved 15 close contacts. 11 still needed to quarantine because we only had 4 involved in tool testing. So the elementary school is still getting hit the hardest, and the emails that I'm sending you predominantly are the elementary school right now because of the inability to vaccinate. And all we have is mask and pool testing. That's what I have for you this evening.
Thank you.
Any questions? Very good. So, since we moved the public comments to later in the agenda, then we're now at that point, but based upon our last, did I miss?
No, I should make sure Doug's here.
Okay, oh, that's right, we got that. Okay, well, that's coming right up. Okay, so anyway, there seemed to be a little confusion at our last meeting about public comment section of our agenda, and although we do have a policy for it, and a lot of this is actually kind of spelled out in the policy, but I think this might explain a little bit more, so I wanted to provide some hopefully clarifying information, so there's less confusion as it was at our last meeting, so I wrote it down to hopefully kind of cover it. So school boards are elected to govern their schools. Our meetings are for the board to conduct the required business of the school district. By law, this business is conducted in the view of the public. While these meetings are in the public, they are not public meetings, as is a legislative session is not a public meeting. They're in the public, but they're not intended to be an interactive question-answer public meeting. The law does require us to have a public comment period during our meetings, which we do have. The public comment period is for your opportunity in the public to express your views within the guidelines of our policy, which is specific as far as you can't, for example, call out a specific staff member, that sort of thing, not personal things of a personal nature, etc. But those sort of things are in policy. So it's not an open discussion period. So while a simple question that is raised in the public comment period may be answered, but we would suggest for a more thoughtful and thorough response, I would suggest that your questions or your comments that should be first emailed to an appropriate building administrator first. And then if you need further information or want to pursue it further, the superintendent. And then if you desire to go further than that, then you can bring it to the attention of the board members. That's the preferred method because oftentimes, obviously, the administrators are first level. They're dealing with the questions in the trenches every day in their school buildings, and then further up the ladder. So, but please keep in mind that response to your request for information or a question or whatever might take a few days because they have things that they need to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that of course can be a multitude of things on any given day, but they will get back to you. We do appreciate your input and we'll consider your views, but also remember that we have a legal obligation to run the school district within the law while also doing our best with our limited resources to deliver the best education we can to each and every student. So, but I hope that clarifies what the public comment section is for. There seemed to be some concern last time. Mr. Farrell.
Just for the record and for anyone watching online, where can this policy be found if we want to read this policy about public participation?
This is posted on the school district's website. Good question. Make it known to everybody. It is posted on the school district website under resources. I think there's a tab for resources, and policies and such are listed under there somewhere. But anyway, so I will open up for public comment. Again, within the policy, of course, please identify yourself and where you're from, and you have 3 minutes to
Hi, my name is Melissa Willett, and I'm on China Road in Winslow. And don't be fooled, this CRT is here in our schools. Even if you can't quite put your finger on it, it's here, and watch out because it spreads like wildfire. It's been taught in academia since the 70s. Critical theory goes back to the 20s, and it's escaped the university and now is infecting K through 12 schools as well as our military. Indoctrination. Not sure if any of you remember the meeting a couple months back where you tried to push the equity and inclusion garbage. Those are the most frequently used buzzwords in the CRT. They lead you to believe this is a good thing. It's most definitely not. It teaches students that they are either oppressors or oppressed. They are put into groups, segregation. Then they believe in equity, not equality. Equity, the quality of being fair or impartial, something that is fair and just. We all know this is not true. Our children are all unique, beautiful individuals. Some have strengths in math, while others have strengths in English. Some are super smart and should run with it and not be held back or put into any groups. Equity does not equal equality. We can educate and promote healthy growth in their strengths and provide support in areas they struggle. Parents should not be left out of this equation in making sure their child succeeds. CRT buzzwords include diversity, inclusion, tolerance, racial injustice, white privilege, the newest one, social emotional learning, unconscious bias, intersectionality. What's this? It's about fighting discrimination within discrimination, tackling inequalities within inequalities, protecting minorities within minorities. Such garbage. Where is the equality? Example, when a female student in the junior high uses the boys' bathroom, and let's say a bunch of boys are uncomfortable with this, as they should be, they cannot say anything about it. If they do, they are labeled. They're labeled as intolerant. Where are the concerns for the majority? Why is there an issue in junior high? Children are here for one thing, and that is an education. Why are we not focusing on that? Winslow Junior High, 6 through 8, placed in the top reading proficiency, is the top 20%. This was for 2018 school year. The percentage is of 36% for 2018-19 school year. Shouldn't the schools focus on real education such to address this instead? Stop using the psychological warfare that you hear. The student ratio is 10-1, yet here we are. Maybe we need to address this instead. How are we supposed to feel? How are they supposed to feel with masks on their face, hours at a time? We know this is unhealthy for them, but that doesn't matter. They offer zero protection. Did any of you look at that stuff? Have any of you looked at any of the literature that people have dropped off? Oh, we only follow the CDC guidelines, right? Who is the CDC? Have you ever asked that? Did you look into any of that information? No, because we're all puppets. I would encourage you to vote yes on question 3. The right to grow your own food. This is a basic fundamental right. We have the right to determine how or what food we can grow. No, the FDA regulates 80% of our food.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I didn't understand the last point about question 3. What does that have to do with the school board? I'm just not making the link.
It has to do with our rights being taken away, and none of you seem to notice this.
Okay, well, let me get back to this point. Actually, in our policy, the public comments is related to items that are on our agenda are related to the school directly.
Okay.
So just wanted to clarify that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir,
Mike Willett, China Road.
what was the first name, sir?
Mike Willett, China Road, Winslow, time with this matter. Live on the China Road in Winslow. You quote the CDC time and time again. Facts, masks don't work. Who controls the CDC? That's Anthony Fauci. He has lied continuously about masks not working and the jabs being safe, which has led to over 200,000 deaths in the US alone. And that's not counting approximately 1 million with severe adverse reactions, which include myocarditis, heart attacks, high blood pressure, Parkinson's, cancer. Cancers have gone through the roof, paralysis, and after a period of time, memory loss and multiple other reactions. 12-year-olds have died of heart attacks. Dr. Crt Buzzwords has videotaped under a microscope living organisms found in Pfizer, Moderna, J&J vaccine samples. She also has found metallic particles. If this doesn't make you question what's going on, especially what the superintendent just said, what will? Hasn't the government done enough to kill America over the past 2 years? This is reaching a boiling point all across the U.S. The National School Board Association contacted Biden and asked him to involve the FBI in local school board matters. This is meant to control parents on their outrage of the teaching of CRT in our schools. Then it was the mask mandates, quarantine, and the Hate America curriculum. And now they want to inject this jab into our children with this unsafe so-called vaccine. In the past 2 years, every liberty has been under attack. I started to take notice when I saw freedom of speech was under assault, the cancel culture. Since then, things have progressed rapidly. We couldn't go to lunch, work, or school without masks. Small business, which are the backbone of America, were told that they were non-essential. Many of them had to close, but had to close their doors permanently. Now for others, it's the jab or lose your job. Even though the rate of infection is less than 1%, the mask wearing is a prelude to the jab. That is the ultimate goal, to control the masses. When they get the jab, which has known side effects, you rarely hear about it on the news. I beg you to dig deeper than the media reports. There is so much more going on here there is so much more going on here, and the benefits do not outweigh the risk. Our government gives exemptions to certain companies, 2,500 Pfizer employees, 1,500 Moderna employees. They all get vaccine exemptions, 120,000 exemptions at Johnson & Johnson. CDC employees, 15,000. FDA, 14,000. 8 million Chinese students do not have to get the jab. 2 million illegal aliens and 500,000 homeless people. It's very scary. What the superintendent said about the jab coming up, I know it's policy and the mask is to stay open, but I'd like to just see a raise of hands. How many of you really think that the kids need to get a jab in the future?
That's not something we're going to answer right now.
Okay.
Your time's about up. Are you about done?
Thank you for your time and good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
See any other public comments? Very good. I guess we are now on old business. We don't have anything listed over there. Nothing under old business. Very good. Thank you. New business. Update on proposed building plans, and we have Doug Greer online. Give us an update. We're not hearing you, Doug. You might be muted.
We'll say no news is good news.
Okay, how's that?
Hey, you're back.
Yeah, I had to reload the page.
Will, are you able to turn that up?
I cannot turn up his volume, no.
Okay, how's that? Can you hear me okay?
It's a little muffled.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen right now.
Try this. That would work, yes. Solving those problems every day.
All right, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Good, can you hear me better now?
Yes, I think we're good.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for having me back. It's good to see some familiar faces out there. What I've got on the screen now is a Google Earth photo of and I just wanted to point out where this proposed addition is going. Can everyone see my mouse or my cursor.
Yes.
There are two cars parked by this entrance, adjacent to the ball field over here. This is where the addition is, will be going. And here's an overall plan of the elementary school. The proposed addition is light blue over here. And you can see there's some dashed lines showing future expansion. So this wing could be extended further out to the ball field. And then you may have seen these already. This is the first floor plan. You've got one large classroom, one smaller classroom, and then the corridor that goes out to the ball field. We have a toilet room and a small office or storage room. And these are the stairs right here. Going upstairs, similar, but we have two full-size classrooms upstairs because we don't have the corridor up there.
So Doug, what is square footage wise? What does that, you say the full-size classrooms, what is the typical size for a full-size classroom?
Anywhere from 700 to 750 to even 800 square feet is considered a full-size classroom. So the one of them is 700, almost 700. The other one's 737 square feet.
So we have 3 full-size and 1 smaller?
Correct, yeah. Down on the first floor, you'd have a smaller one at 420 square feet. And then a regular size classroom at 737 square feet. And each floor is about 2,000 square feet. So we're talking about 4,000 square feet of new construction. And your building has never been added on to before. It's a good looking, well-built building. And so our proposal is to have it meld in with the existing building rather than having it look tacked on. So we would pick up the similar banding, similar masonry. We'd try to match the existing brick. So these are the elevations. This is this east elevation would be facing the ball field. And here's a 3D image. The existing school is whited out, so just to give you an idea of what's new versus what's existing. I have a couple little short videos I can show you. This is an exterior video moving around the outside of the building. I'll start that.
So Doug, if I could ask the question, is that walkway the existing location in it, the existing walkway, existing location?
We'd have to reroute it around the addition slightly.
Okay, because one of the questions that I have that I know is gonna come up is how far this projects out from the existing building, because we do have some soccer fields that, or youth-size soccer fields that are used in that green space, and we need to have some sort of idea how that projects out, so we have an idea if that interferes with those.
I can tell you that right now. If I go back to this screen here. Right there, that wall, that projects 11 feet beyond this existing face here.
That's 11 feet on that side?
11 feet on this piece right here.
Okay.
So you could go out with tape measure pretty easily and stake that out.
Okay, and so what's the width across there to understand where the other corner is? Because that's in line with this, the little jog in the existing building, so.
Right.
I guess that's where that is, all right.
It's 54.5 feet. It would be the this long dimension here. Facing the ball field, it's 54.5 feet.
Okay.
So they put that field in where the baseball field is, Joel?
Well, that's, what was the dimension you had on that side?
54.5 feet across
Right.
the long face, and 11 feet this little piece here.
Okay. Yeah, well, Well, there's two soccer fields getting put side by side there, plus there's one on the outfield of the baseball field. When they're all being used.
Right, so you're talking about,
This baseball field is where they're going.
Well, you have one that goes here. The second one is like this, right beside it. And then, of course, well, you were talking the T-ball field, and of course, then there's another one back on this outfield. So depending on how far that projects out, this field could get.
21 feet, so it's not gonna go much past that walkway.
Yeah, but it's further on the other corner, and actually that corner that sticks out further is the one that's more likely to impose upon that soccer field. So we have to know whether or not, as part of this project, we need to plan for a relocation of that soccer field. And if it's not, I'm sure it'll at least be affected during the construction period, so that we need to let our Parks and Rec director know that those fields aren't gonna be available during construction, so. That was.
Now, are those fields primarily used on Sundays? That's when they're
What do they do, rec soccer?
No,
Saturdays, right?
No, it was 2 days a week.
Oh, that's right, evenings during the week, yeah.
Yeah.
Been a long time since I've done.
Yeah, so it was 2 days a week, and it was rotating schedule back when I was coaching, it was a rotating schedule depending on the age group.
That's right, it is on the weekend, Saturday mornings, but as well as, yes, a couple of nights during the week, so. Yeah, so we would need to account for that even if it doesn't ultimately, and it definitely will during construction.
But I think if it's only during the construction and not forever, then it won't be an issue, because I think the use of Norton Field will be, where they'll temporarily go to Norton until this is done, and then I think we'll be okay, because 11 feet, I thought it was just a problem too. And, but what I'm looking at there is that I don't think it's gonna be as big a problem as I thought.
Okay, well, it's definitely something we need to talk to Amanda about, and we wanna cover that with her, but.
We may be able to push it more back towards the wood line too.
Yeah, a little bit, but there's a lot more slope back there for drainage, which makes it a little less playable field, so.
You not see by this, it doesn't.
Yeah. I looked at it a couple of weeks ago, so, until I had these dimensions, it's hard to put it in perspective as to whether it's gonna, feed those fields, but,
Those feet like 4 strides.
but I'm optimistic that it might be okay, but, we won't know until we measure it out. So. So Doug, way back when you first started talking about this project, one of the, I don't know how far into the design plans you are for this. I had made the suggestion that we continue the plumbing drain lines completely under that slab, so that if we add on to the building in the future, that we didn't have to break into the existing concrete floor to get drain lines.
Right.
Is that part of the plan still?
That's a great idea. I mean, that's assuming that we can get enough pitch, what we'd be tying into, which, we still need to verify that, but if we can get enough pitch, we would definitely do that. Run it right down the corridor and put a clean out right by the exterior doors, the outside.
Yeah.
So we're working with Ledgewood Construction right now on this project. We're starting design development phase, starting to work out more of the details. And the plan is to put together a full design development set by the end of November for Ledgewood to price out. And that'll be our first reality check on our budget. I think we'll be in pretty good shape. We've learned a lot over the past couple of years, and things have only gotten worse in terms of construction costs. So, but we will find out early December where we stand on our budget, and if we need to make adjustments after that, we'll do that. But the plan right now is to hopefully start construction in March, April.
Okay. So by the end of November, we'll have some more definitive plans that we can look at and review and make sure that we're.
Well, I'll be sending you plans periodically before then. Just to keep everybody in the loop and make sure we're on the right track. But definitely we'll have a full set of drawings by the end of November for you to review and for Ledgewood to price out.
Okay. I saw in your plans you had this sloped roof. I don't know if you and Shelley have had any conversation about that, how that tie-in's gonna work with our existing roof, how that might look like for further expansion. Just a couple questions on that front.
Right. So we were trying to pick up the existing pitched or the hip roof of the existing building. This is the back of the building. We could do a flat roof here. It wouldn't be the end of the world. I don't know if it would save any money, but we could do that. But if we were to extend this out, we would just continue that hip roof out with any expansion that might happen.
It looks nice, what he's done to it.
Yeah, and I mean, Nate knows our roofs well.
What about behind the building? You have a sloped roof in the back of that building, don't you?
Yeah, right here is what I'm worried about, where the snow will collect.
That slope out, you know?
Right in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a slope roof, even if we went with a flat roof, there's a slope roof that would feed onto that, so that would be a problem, right?
Well, I think you're talking about in this area right here. Yeah, we'd have to have some kind of cricket to the water away from the building.
An offset.
To slope away from the building.
Okay. What do you envision the roofing materials to be? I know we've had our issues with the metal roofing that's on there, and we've done a lot of work over the years, but I don't know what's on the back of that building now for roofing. Is it metal still?
Part of it's metal and part of it's the rubber membrane that we put on there.
So would the new roof be rubber to continue that, to get away from the metal that we've had issues with? Is that the intent?
The intent would be to do metal if we could, and maybe repair the metal that's there. It's unfortunate that your metal roof is only 30 years old. They should last longer than that. But
well,
if we didn't want to do metal, I would probably suggest doing just a flat roof. I think a pitched roof with rubber on it is not very attractive. So in that case, I would just do a flat roof with rubber on it.
I mean, maybe Nate has some input on this.
The cricket in the back won't be too hard because it's Carlisle Sherwell heat welded membrane.
Right.
So you're not gonna have issues, even if it does fall in a little bit of water, it's not gonna leak.
Right.
So that's good news.
Yeah. But
the membrane behind it.
The membrane's working well.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess the question is, as far as the existing metal that you're tying into, how problematic that area is and whether or not we need to. Make sense for that.
The existing metal that we have now is very problematic because with the way it moves with the wind and for other reasons, it's wearing holes where the clips are that hold the panels in place. And, we continue to try to maintain it, but it continues to fail. And, it is a problem. And that's in part due to the fact that it's the wrong type of metal that they used on the roof. They didn't use the proper metal for the northern region of the States. So it's wearing very quickly.
What gauge metal do you remember?
No, I don't.
24,
maybe.
Probably.
Yeah, it's aluminum, and what they did was it's our understanding they used steel fasteners under aluminum panels. So 30 years later, the steel's held up. Yeah, the aluminum hasn't.
Right.
And so we're finding holes, 3 to 5 feet every time there's a fastener.
The difference between the thickness of residential metal and industrial commercial metal.
Well, and the length of the panels with the expansion and contraction, you have a lot of movement because the panels are so long. I guess I'm just suggesting maybe there needs to be more conversation on that, Doug, to make sure that we're not tying a new roof into a problematic roof.
No, absolutely. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, Pete McPherson gave me a call just to discuss that very issue, because he knows about the roof better than I do. And so he and I and maybe somebody else from Ledgewood will be up there in the next few weeks. We'll meet with Shelley and anyone else who might be interested. And that's one of the things we want to take a look at is the roof.
I can hang out with you, Shelley.
I can't hear what he's saying. I don't know. what
He wants to meet with you, and I said, I'll hang out with you if you'd like.
Perfect.
He said, yeah, coming up in a couple of weeks, maybe
Yep.
go through that. I think that would be wise, because with all the issues we've had over the years, we want to make sure we get that right.
Okay.
We want to use Nathan before we have to start paying him.
Go and make gift to the board.
So, good, and as you touched on before, the facade and everything's gonna match what's there currently, so it'll look like a seamless addition.
That's the plan, exactly. I had Jason LaChance from Moore Brick Company. He went by a few weeks ago, took some pictures, and helped me match the brick. So we want it to blend in.
Okay? All right, does anybody else have any questions for Doug at this point, or are you got any more for us, Doug?
No, this has been good. The point about the roof is definitely a good point, and one that we wanted to look into more.
Yeah, that's definitely a key point.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that looks pretty good. It looks like it's changed a little bit from some preliminary designs, particularly in regards to the offices and the restrooms and such, but that looks pretty adequate there.
Yeah, it's evolving.
Yeah, it's good use of space, so.
Now, I did have a question. The exterior doors were showing 3. On this end of the building, you actually have 2 pairs of doors. But my calculations on egress capacity indicate you could get by with a single pair of doors and pick up some classroom space. But is this a major way out for kids to get to the playfields?
Instead of 4 doors, he wants 2 doors to
Yeah,
add to the classroom space.
did you catch what he was saying?
Shrink the
I did.
exit.
What do the administrators think about that as far as, because you have it designed right now for what will meet code.
Well, actually, I have an extra door. In fact, we could get away with just a pair of doors.
And narrow the hallway?
Narrow the hallway and pick up some classroom space.
Which would give the small classroom maybe a little more space.
Yeah. So I didn't want to do that unless, if this was like a major way out for recess, you might want to leave the 3 or even 4 doors, but.
Are there gonna be any locker considerations, lockers? This hallway?
Well, this hallway is downstairs. We do tend to have our upper classes with lockers tend to be upstairs, which there is no hallway up there. But, I mean, to your point, if we make it too narrow, then you don't even have the option.
Right.
Point.
Just keep that in mind if you are gonna need lockers, that might be the reason to keep it wide.
So, Doug, what is the minimum width that would be required?
Oh, for a corridor?
For the corridor, yeah.
Yeah, well, by code it's 6 feet, but that's very small. We typically try to have 8 feet, 8-foot corridors. Then your lockers. So with the lockers, you're talking about not close to 9.5 feet. So if we kept we could keep the pair of doors, center it, and we could put lockers on both sides potentially.
Well, that's a good idea.
You have this designed how wide right now?
It's right now we are 10'3".
Okay. All right, well, that's something we can consider if we need to move that wall a little bit and create a little space or not.
Yep. Yeah, we'll one of those details we'll be working out in the weeks ahead.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Doug while we have him? Ms. Price?
So I still believe that our population in this town is going to continue to grow over the years. And obviously, there's a footprint here that has a couple of other classrooms out there for future expansion. And though I love the idea of making this one blend in with the exterior, that seems like a lot of expense and brick on that side of the building that you're potentially going to add on to again down the road. And I don't know what the thoughts would be about what that surface might be on that side, but the idea that you might end up, the sides of it you might match as you continue to grow out that way. But to see that beautiful backside then get covered up by 2 more or 4 more classrooms 10 years from now, just makes me wonder if that's good money to be had now when you could.
No way to predict the future, so.
Well, are you also suggesting the idea like we did with the junior high where the lower half is brick and the upper half is metal?
Well, something that.
I mean, I know that's less expensive or it used to be. I don't know if it still is, but.
Just the idea that looks like there's a lot of money tied up and having that fit in to look like the rest of the building that you're eventually maybe gonna cover up with something if you ever were to expand.
That's a good point, Kyle. I mean, if it is likely that you will expand, yeah, you probably wouldn't want to put that kind of money into it. We could do just a band of brick down low and something less expensive up above, like a metal siding.
And then that roof design's gonna probably take that into consideration too. I mean, if you went back to your very first picture, which was the aerial of the school building, I mean, you're kind of mimicking that opposite end eventually.
Right. But 10 years from now, it could turn into 25 years from now, 30 years from now.
I get it, and there's maybe a life expectancy on this building as well. I mean, it's been already said tonight, I probably need to say it again, but at some point in time, we probably have to deal with that roof.
Yeah.
Other than just patching it. Maybe that's great, maybe that will last the life of the building, but I think this building was built with a 40 to 50 year life expectancy, what I remember hearing. And we're 30 in.
And
Well, the building,
went 100 years, so.
Well, they built them then.
Yeah.
well, the building should last a number of years. Systems do wear out, roofs, windows, heating. But that doesn't mean the building can't go on for another 50 years, as long as those items are addressed.
And I would agree with that. I mean, there's nothing about the building that makes me worried that it couldn't, but I think what you have up over our heads is going to need some attention. The other thing, unless like a broken record, it'll be that sprinkler system that will need some attention to last that long.
Good point.
Well, we'll definitely be interested in seeing some of the details, and that might be something we discuss. Exterior siding, if particularly depending on what the dollars come in looking like, that kind of might push them into a direction of reconsidering lower brick and upper metal.
Right.
Yes, but there's still only so much money.
Right, but I'm saying, he probably knew that when he drew up the plan, because we had.
Well, yeah, but obviously we typically try to make it blend in, and
Right.
but we had to make some cross-cutting adjustments to that at the high school and junior high. Who knows, we'll see how this comes in and whether or not we need to adjust for this as well.
Talking about using town's money, then.
Well, that's another whole
Kind of
conversation.
more,
so.
would be more consideration than.
But, I mean, I think the general layout is, to me, it looks pretty good. We can talk about the hallway to gain some space in the small classroom, but it looks like a pretty efficient use of space. In my mind, of however many times we've looked at plans on this building over the years.
We're borrowing trouble. We're borrowing trouble at this point.
Yeah.
We can what if it to death at this point.
Yeah.
What ifs go on and on and on.
Well, having 4 rooms is a heck of a lot more than they've got right now. So it'd be a significant improvement and no cost to the taxpayers. So that's a big plus. That opportunity doesn't come up often or ever.
This is just information, correct? You don't need anything from us.
No, see plans further as he expressed, and I'm very interested in seeing that, but looks like things are heading in the right direction, and I'm interested to see if it affects our field. That was one of my big questions, because that's definitely a logistical thing. But eventually, that might not be bad. So,
Joe? If you look at the large open space of the corridor where it intersects the existing building, and you're headed toward where there are currently 3 doors, if the corridor, instead of going straight, turned left and went across the small classroom, and you made a classroom out of the remaining space, that corridor, particularly if it were not as wide, would leave a larger classroom than the 420 square feet that we've got currently. Am I correct?
Great thought, but for the future expansion, this makes more sense.
Yeah, that was done primarily for the future expansion, going straight out like that, but.
Because then we could.
Okay, that's right, you gotta be able to give him the new expansion. Thank you.
Right, if it ever expanded more, that's where it would have to go this way.
Yeah.
But I like that, at least you're thinking of options, well, that's good.
yeah.
If we were to end it there, you're right.
I mean, the only other thing that comes to mind to me is where the entry doors are into the classroom, as those walls was moved back into the hallway, if that would gain any usable space. So that kind of makes it kind of a big square out in front of those rooms, but maybe you need that for easier egress.
Well, I had a preliminary review with the State Fire Marshal's office today, and this is one of the areas that came up. There's a stair here, and it's protected by doors, so smoke doesn't easily go up to the second floor. So they would like to see us put doors in these openings, and we can put them on hold opens, so they're open most of the time. They would close only during when the fire alarm went off. But they would like to see that, keep this area separate from this stairwell. So that's a change I'm gonna have to look at. And so in that case, I don't think we want to move that door, because we're gonna be taking up some space with adding these doors back in. We'll have to flip the door into the toilet room to the other side.
Okay, good. All right, well, there's always a catch to everything, so.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the feedback. This has been very helpful.
Just so that we're all on the same page, just to kind of review this process, we've been working on this for quite some time now, and this obviously is part of our ESSER application.
Yep.
So some of the funds are coming from Tiers 2, about 75,000. The rest is coming from the ESSER. And if you look at the preliminary budget that was in your packet, there will be a guaranteed maximum price in December at some point. But in terms of the complete cost, we will need some of the existing leftover bond money in order to help us with this as well, which there is funds there. So the next piece, after having conversations with our attorneys and the town's attorney, the town council needs to appropriate the bond fund that's there in order to support this project. That's really the last missing checkbox that we need in order for this to be all systems go.
Now, when you say appropriate, you mean they're just shifting funding codes to it. The money's there. They're just taking it from one funding string and attaching it to another.
The money is there, and they are giving their blessing that money would be an appropriate use to do this. Yes. The other thing that we talked about, which we had conversations with the town manager about, is also using some of the bond money for paving around the elementary school, and part of that central office is pretty bad. So that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention as well. In speaking to Paul Bongamy at the town office, Shelley's had conversations with him, This year, he gave us a quote of about $189,000 to have this done. He told me the other day that that's gonna go up a little bit because of prices. So if you were to budget probably 200 out of that bond that's there, that's money that you wouldn't have to look at for capital improvement down the road, because that parking lot's pretty bad.
But does that parking lot include the area like where the bonfire takes place?
No.
Because that's not our problem.
No, it's just the elementary school in that area.
The loop is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Is over at your office.
The side up against the playground, yeah, I believe.
It's the foundation of the old Boston Avenue School. I think that's got a little to do with it. There's some relic underground there that has contributed to what that surface is like now.
Now, there would be enough that's remaining in the bond to take care of that and also address whatever is needed for the school.
And Shelley can tell you exactly where that tar is. She's met with Paul, like.
Yeah. And that reduces any capital expense that we need to ask the town for in 3 years to put in a new parking lot.
You have the potential to set yourselves up very nicely with a beautiful elementary school setting. Parking lots, if it's the campus, everything would be in tip-top shape.
What's there has been there quite a while, and it's had a lot of bus traffic.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that would be well, and inclusive to all this project, I mean, we have to furnish this space as well, so.
So one of the things that we would speak to the council about is we would say, yes, you'd have to furnish it, so it would have to be usable space, which includes the furnishings, whatever you need for desks and chairs and whatnot. Shelley did some research on this for me today and came up with an amount of, if you look at everything, the majority of things that you would typically ask for. And I took I'm not even sure if I took a half a second glance at it, but I thought I saw $22,000 or something like that for a figure, maybe a little bit more.
That's pretty good.
That's budget dust on a $2 million project.
Right, that's real good, because that's 4 classrooms.
Yeah.
But again, that would be not off anybody's capital improvement plan, it would be all part of this.
Right.
You know, when you think about, this all falls underneath the
COVID funds.
the guidelines for building for these funds for additional space. When you think about the potential, once that's there, in terms of being able to expand your 4-year-old program, which is a revenue maker for you. The only way schools make revenues is if they have more children. Kyle said it. I mean, he's been talking about this for the last 10 years. I mean, you have an in-migration here in Winslow. People want to come here. And the numbers grow. Erica told me last week she registered 8 kids last week. It's very unusual.
Good God.
So that happens.
October?
And, you know, they don't have a classroom right now. If they wanted to do a display and leave it and let it set up, they don't have a space to do that. So all of the reasons for doing this are stars are lining up, and I would build it if you can, so that it looks fantastic, so that when families come and look at it, say, wow, this is quality.
This is where.
One of the main topics of conversation at the town manager's coffee the other morning, I attended, it was geared towards trying to beautify and make Winslow a more desired location for people to move to. So that's going to be the focus of the town. And if they're doing that at the same time that we're doing our job at the school, I think those will work hand in hand to make the whole place better, and that's when we'll need more.
Synergistic effect.
Right, it is good that we've got that synergistic.
Curb appeal will be improved.
Right.
But between that and all the other work we're doing inside the schools with curriculum development and such, you know, I think our future looks bright.
Very, very bright.
we need some space, and if the Congress gets their thing going together, whatever, universal pre-K and things like that might become a requirement, and who knows what kind of space that might be, depending on what that looks like, or CDS, or some of the other things that have been bounced around for years.
That's a really good point, because if that were to happen and you were mandated to do it and you didn't have the space, you'd be looking at putting trailers in your back parking lot at $100,000 a pop per year on taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
That's not a good use of
No,
your money.
especially not when you have the opportunity to get in front of the wave.
Yeah.
Let's surf. Let's surf.
So,
Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you. Feel free to reach out, any questions, and we'll talk to you soon.
all right, thank you, Doug.
Bye.
Joel, I don't think it's oversized, but one of the things that people remark about when they come into our building, like the 6 members of one family, the library. And I think it's well utilized, but when they come in there, they're just like, whoa.
It's a nice space.
I mean, there's a lot of other nice places too. I mean, if you're into the bouts of basketball or kicking a ball around, you can go to the gym and say, what elementary school's got almost a regulation length court that's 4 feet short? So.
Yeah. No, I think, as a general rule, that building was pretty well done. On the positive side of that, I mean, we had state funds to help with that, and we weren't carrying it all on our dime. So that helps on that front, which typically, when we're doing it with all local dollars, which unfortunately we've had to use lately, we've pinched pennies, and that hasn't always resulted in what we aspire to in all occasions, but, we have to work within the means that we have to work within. So, and obviously inflation and other things came into play that were above and beyond what was anticipated, that didn't help us either, so. But pretty optimistic, I think, on moving forward with this, and it's a step forward to help a deficiency that needs help. Any other questions on that front? Or anything else from Peter to add on that? Kind of exciting. All right. Next up is Leah's preliminary update. That must be Mr. Bell.
Not that I think you need this to listen to me, but in case there's folks at home. So I want to keep my comments kind of brief, because when we get the full report in a couple of months, I will take up more time going over that, how that relates to our school-wide goals for this year, and kind of what the plan is moving forward. So I'll try to keep them brief. I know you guys have had a long day. I want to start by just thanking the staff for jumping back into a lot of the work that we started pre-COVID. I will say that when we had our in-service days, which I'm forgetting the dates now, but they were the week before we had our accreditation visit. Jumping into those conversations, and some of which started pre-COVID. If you will remember back when it was in 2018, we had NEAS come in. And back then, those of you that were on the board, which I know will be a couple of you, the accreditation process with NEAS had changed. They were on a 10-year cycle. Every 10 years, every faculty member in the school had to serve on a committee, and there was like these self-reviews and then plans coming out of that, and they came through and really looked critically at every aspect of your building. NEAS saw the writing on the wall when schools started jumping off that board. It was an expensive process. It was a huge time commitment. And schools were starting to look at other models. So NEAS kind of changed with that. I'll be honest with you, when I first started here as a staff, we had that conversation. Is it worth it in the future to continue going down this road? So NEAS made some changes. And they're like, okay, so we're going to do a 2-part process. we're gonna come, you're gonna do a self-reflection. You're gonna have a steering committee that involves students, parents, staff members, and you are gonna send out surveys to all of your stakeholders. You're gonna send them to your parents, to your students, to your staff, and that is gonna be kind of like your critical review process, where then you are gonna come up with what are those areas that you feel you want to improve upon as a school. The outsiders come in, and it was a team of 3 people that looked at what you had for self-reflection. They had their individual meetings, so they would have had a meeting with a group of parents. They would have had a meeting with their students. They would have had meetings with staff members, with administration throughout their entire visit. Then they look at, okay, what did you set for priority areas? Is it something that they think, yeah, you're on the right track? Or did they have other things that they're like, hey, did you think about this? What about this? Because it would have come up in their conversations and trying to help the school critically review what they're doing and come up with a plan to improve. So that was the plan in 2018. As you know, we set some goals, which you guys, I think, had some conversations with the NEAS group, but then COVID hit, so then we kind of come back around. Some of what the work we've done during COVID aligned really nicely to what some of those priority areas are. But where I was going with that is, it was really awesome to get back into a lot of those things. And for a day and a half, we talked about teaching and learning at Winslow High School and did not talk about mask mandates or COVID response or anything related to COVID. It was really, truly awesome. And I do want to thank the staff, because going through a process of critical review is tough. It's a lot of work. As you know, staff members, administrators, all of us, everybody's stressed out. So jumping back into this, I commend the staff for doing that without kicking me out the front door. So, and again, getting back to those conversations were awesome. And we're gonna continuously look for ways to improve, and this is one of those processes. But anyway, more about that when we get the report back. I wanna thank the students for being their usual selves, welcoming to the visiting committee, and I think to the kids, they could care less who's walking around. They're going to be who they are. And the comments that I received from the visiting committee, which I receive all the time when there's visitors, is how welcoming our student body is, how respectful they are all the time. And we've got a special breed, and I brag about them all the time. But really welcoming throughout the entire visit. I thank you guys for meeting with them that night. That was an extra night away from your families, and I appreciate it, because your input is obviously very, very important. So again, the main purpose was to provide us feedback on the goals that we had set in 2018. The highlight of the visit for me as the principal was the conversations that the visiting committee had with all those different subgroups. They met with 2 groups of students, and when they told me, here's what I want for students. I want a cross-section of what a typical Winslow High School student may be. So we want to see the range. We want to see every grade level. We want to see across abilities. We want some students with IEP, some students with 504, some students that are taking AP classes, some students that are in general level classes. Like, we want it all, and we want it to be a very diverse group of students that represent everybody. So we put together 2 groups. One was freshman, sophomore, another group was juniors and seniors. And after the committee met with those students, they were giddy. They were so excited to hear from the students and hear the great communicators that our kids are. And the comment came up numerous times, how well-spoken they are and how they could advocate for what they love about their school and what they wish we had to bring them to the next level. It was awesome. And just hearing the excitement, I mean, I get excited about our students and our staff and our school, but hearing an outsider come in, get excited like I normally do, was really awesome to see. So there's 8 things. They ended the day talking on Wednesday, talking with my leadership team, some teachers that were there. Peter was there, I was there, Michelle was there. And they talked about some of the recommendations for our priority areas and what are the commendations. I'm going to talk more about that when we actually do the goal setting and dig into all 4 or 5 of those areas. But then they had a faculty meeting and they left some commendations, and there was a long list of them. I picked 8 that truly represent what we value, that they were excited about, as well as kind of what the work is that we've done since 2018 that we're really proud of that we've done. Number one, the perseverance, resilience, and deep-seated building-wide dedication of all staff to support students and their families through the pandemic. And I think that's district-wide. I don't think that's just Winslow High School. The development of a more formal protocol for teacher collaborative time to review evidence of student learning and discuss how the results of this collaboration will impact instruction. That was a major area where we wanted to focus as a staff. We were having conversations, but what was the systematic way that we were doing that? And then how did those conversations relate to classroom instruction? And there's a few of those, these in here. The implementation of programs that foster students' empathy and leadership skills while enhancing inclusion, community, and pride. And that is what we are. That is Winslow. So whether that's NHS, whether that's W Club, Student Senate, we could keep going on, the Raider Closet, there are things that we take pride in and we enhance for all of our students. The use of multiple styles of formative assessment to assess student understanding and inform instruction. So one thing that we focused on during this visit was there are the different meetings going on. Every faculty member highlighted things that were going on in their classroom, shared resources, had dialogue with the visiting committee. And that is something that the visiting committee is actually taking back to NEASC and saying this has to be part of the program. It's just what we did. It's because we wanted to, a big thing that we talked about was formative and summative assessments and trying to engage students more in that process and not just be kind of a sit and get type thing. So what are we doing? And we've spent a lot of time having conversations since 2018. I think COVID kind of helped us have that conversation a little bit and provide with, technology and different things for the teachers to use with students. So I think that's highlighted, but the staff, they were so excited to share that. And again, nobody threw me out the front door and I said, everybody's got to do this. And that was a big part of what we've worked on that workshop day. So NEASC, the committee's bringing that back. And I do want to highlight who NEASC is, the people that were here. They don't work for NEASC. They're colleagues. There was an assistant principal from Falmouth. There was teachers from Morse, Herman, Lewiston. I'm probably forgetting a school in there somewhere. And then the chair was actually a math teacher from Connecticut, from a high school in Connecticut. And she's done a lot of these visits. So they're all colleagues. They're not like these people who don't live in schools. They live and breathe what we do every single day. So anyway, they're going to go back and say this should be part of a requirement of schools to sit down with all teachers where they can present things going on. And the only thing I told the staff was present something that you value with teaching and learning. Let's show them what we value every day. To use creatively developed summative assessments by content areas to engage students in their learning. So kind of affiliated with that formative assessment one. The school's participation in diversity, equity, and inclusion training to ensure instructional tools, practice, and content are equitable and representative for all students. They were impressed that not only were we looking at this and having conversations, but looking at our curriculum to make sure that what we are presenting to our students is inclusive of all. They thought that was awesome. The positive relationships between students and their teachers that allow for thought-provoking discussion, insightful questioning, and meaningful intervention. And that, again, I kind of ended with that because that is something that we pride ourselves in, is developing those positive relationships to move kids forward. I am really looking forward to getting the full report. It'll probably be, she told me, about 2 months, because once the chair and the co-chair finalize everything and has to go to NEASC for them to kind of review, make sure they have a board that then votes on things. And then she said, so probably around the holiday season, we should get it. If I remember right, it was after the holidays when I got the last one. But we have enough feedback to push us and move us forward with the great work that we're already doing. So that is all starting now. And again, she commended our school for diving in right now to do this. I know this is not the best time, but technically we were supposed to do it in the fall of 2020. And, school improvement doesn't stop because of a pandemic. We have to, move things and change things, but at the end of the day, we have to constantly continually look to improve. And again, I commend our staff for jumping into it because it's not easy work. Any questions?
Not a question, more of a comment. I do think that it takes a lot of people to do this kind of thing, but it seems to me, and what I'm hearing from different sources, that the leadership that you provided, Mr. Bell, was critical, and I commend you for that. And I do think that this is a huge task, and just thrown into everything else you've had to do, you should really take pride in the leadership you've shown, and I, for one, thank you.
I do, and thank you, but I don't do it alone. I've got a great team. And
We know that.
nobody does that alone.
It reflects the leadership that you put into this. I can tell by your enthusiasm that you took this as a personal goal to do a good job of this.
Didn't come with its sleepless nights, but we got a great team.
Thank you.
Winslow High School is a great group of people, that's for sure.
She mentioned during the board meeting a part two that you guys are gonna be getting into the part two, which is the development and implementation of some of the goals. What is the part two?
So this is part two. This is the feedback part two.
Okay.
Part one was 2018. That's when we set the school improvement plan, and we've been working on these.
Okay.
There's 5 areas, but really 4 areas. There's one was about the junior high addition and just making sure we keep the focus on that. Wasn't really a goal written. It was just more make sure you keep this focus. Part of that was a meeting with junior high staff as well. Michelle?
I just wanted to add that I attended the meeting where they were sharing their commendations and whatnot. And they were sharing some personal stories that the students had shared with them. It brought tears to my eyes, and it did other people in the room, stories these kids told about the impact being in the high school has had on them. And it made me think, however, I kind of wish that the elementary school and the junior high could have a similar process that they go through, because I think it would yield similar results in that the importance of our adult administrators, our faculty, the impact they have on our kids is not just in the high school. And the fact that the high school can enjoy that certain type of child is in large part because of the 2 schools that preceded the high school. And they don't have that process where they can hear that kind of feedback. And Peter and I talked about, we wanted to bring some of that back to the faculty in the elementary school and the junior high, because as Chad was saying, it is kind of a team as a district. And those stories were so touching, and you know that there are similar things, and you know that the impact they've had in these schools has definitely had an influence there. I just wanted to say that I just wish all the teachers could hear, and I hope when the report comes out, we can somehow spread that to everyone, to hear the impact we're all having.
I think, a thought in my mind is that having gone through what we went through, still dealing with to a degree, obviously, with the pandemic, that is it true for me to assume that many students now appreciate their schools and their education, their opportunity to be here and be with their peers and their teachers directly, that they appreciate that a lot more now? Like anything else, once you lose it, you appreciate it more when you get it back. Is that a correct thought on my part, that there's a renewed enthusiasm for children to be at school?
So whenever I meet with students, I try to end our conversation with 2 questions. One is, what is the best thing about your school year so far? And the other one is, what do you like about me? No, just kidding. The other one is, what would you change differently about your school year this year? And I try to just get that. The number one answer I get for that first one is, I'm just glad to be back every day.
Yeah.
That almost every single answer is that. They love being back.
On your point, Michelle, I think the work with your curriculum and goal settings that we've heard from the different schools is a form of this. I think all the work that the junior high and elementary have done for setting goals and for trying to reach those goals as a team, and all the work that they've set up, both yourself and Mary in the past with curriculum, you're establishing those things that an accreditation does in your own way. It's not as being judged by an outside panel, but it's more important what's happening inside the school and what you're doing than being judged by an outside accreditation team anyway. So I think you all I'm really impressed by the goal setting that both schools have done and how those are being reached in incremental timeframes.
I'm so glad you said judged, because this whole process, and I've been telling the staff, I said it when we were getting ready in 2018, I said it again getting ready for this visit. This is collaborative, and it truly is. That's what NEASC has tried to change it to, from being judgmental and evaluative to being collaborative. And so many staff members told me afterwards, like, wow, that was actually really good. It really was collaborative. I'm like, you think I was lying to you? Like, that's truly what, actually, that first conference is called the Collaborative Conference, because it truly is. It's working together to identify what it is you want to work on. And this visit's more just about, okay, so you've been working. What have you done? Show us. What are you proud of? What do you value? And it was a good visit. Now, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago how I felt about this visit, totally different. But glad it's over and we'll be glad to get the feedback and the assistance.
Sounds good. I think there's a lot of good things happening in the school. It's nice to get, sometimes it's hard to reflect upon them yourselves, but it's nice to hear those who are looking at it externally, looking in, that know what they're looking at, provide that positive reinforcement and feedback that you guys have all been working hard for. So, sounds good.
All right. Thank you, folks.
All right. Thank you. We'll be looking forward to hearing the final report. Next up is reaffirmation of policy VEDH, public participation at board meetings. So that is a reaffirmation. And there it is right there. So it had been a while since it had been last reaffirmed. So it was I do an examination, given particularly the more interest in public participation. It was worth looking at and being sure that we're addressing that appropriately. So, Mr. Perry.
Under B, the chair may limit the time allotted for comments. I like the fact that there's no specific there, because I do think at times, if the chair wishes, the time frame could be adapted depending on the size of the group we have. An example would be today, we had 2 people possibly speaking. I think this gives you a little more leeway as the chair. So I do like that there's no specific time. Now, we've said the past 3 minutes, but it's not listed on here. So I do kind of like the way that's worded, because it gives you the power to be flexible.
Yeah, I think, as we've discussed that, I think it allows for a certain flexibility. I mean, there's, it's good to keep a certain level of consistency. But I agree, if the numbers are small, they have a little bit more to say. I think that's appropriate, that maybe we can hear them out, because we do want to hear what the public has to say.
If there was 500 people here,
but even if it's 2 people that are going to go for a half an hour each, I mean, that's obviously excessive. So we have to, we have a lot to do with conducting our readings, and it does provide some flexibility if need be and appropriate. But obviously, we've had some discussion about this at policy meetings, and we haven't had as much public participation in the past as we have as of late. So I think learning a little bit more on how to proceed in that arena in a structured manner that's respectful and people get to say what they want to, but allow people some time and keep it focused and on topics that we can address and not things that are outside of our purview. So, but anyway, it's a reaffirmation. We want to get out of here, so let's keep moving. Anybody have any input or otherwise? Otherwise than that, we'll entertain a motion to reaffirm policy BEDH.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Earl, second by Jay. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Next up is reaffirmation of policy BCC on nepotism. This policy hasn't been reaffirmed for a while again, needed some review. I think there was some change in state law, but we pretty much had that covered anyway, so it didn't amount to anything. So,
Now, if I recall, we've had a few cases of things where we've waived this policy, especially if it's a minor position, like assistant coach or something like that.
yes, we have done that. We've adjusted for, immediate supervision where there might be a conflict, those sorts of things. So I think we haven't had I'm not aware of a particular problem with how it's been applied. So I think it's been pretty successful. So.
This policy, in my opinion, and I shared it with one other person who agreed with me, is just extremely poorly worded. I mean, the first sentence, just listen, shall not employ personnel to the staff of the school unit when the candidate is a member of the immediate family. Couldn't it just say the school board not to employ personnel who are a member of the immediate family of the school board? Why do we have to the staff of the school unit when the candidate, it's just a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah.
I had to read it 2 or 3 times to make sure I understood what it meant, because
I don't know if this originally evolved from a sample policy going back to Drummond and Woodsum or something like that, or the Maine School Management Association sample. But, I mean,
the second paragraph has the same problem. The second paragraph is even worse.
One thing, the key word, I think, shall be employed, because we've had in the past a lot of volunteers or what's the right word now? People that are giving their time more than just volunteering.
But they're not employed.
They're not employed, so that's a different thing. So that's a key word in that sentence. No person shall be employed in a position.
The second paragraph, I can say in about 10 words. No person shall be employed in a position in which they are the responsibility of a family member, or they are supervised by a family member. That's what that says. But it takes about 50 words to say it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a
word.
word, getting paid by the word maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think this policy could be rewritten and be a third shorter and a lot easier to read for members of the public that are trying to understand it. For those of us that have lived with it, we knew what it was trying to get to. We just had to wrap our heads around it. For the public, we should be clear and concise.
You want to table it, is that what you're saying?
I would like to see it. My opinion is that it should be revised for clarity.
Okay, well, that is one choice of the board, if they could choose to table this and send it back to the policy committee for a reexamination of editing this for wording. That is a choice.
Well, I would suggest that if that's going to be a choice, then provide the suggested edits.
Well, let me give you an example of what Jay is referring to. So we used this policy not too long ago.
Right.
And I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but we had somebody sitting in the audience that was impacted by this policy or a spouse that was impacted. And so one of the things that we had to look at that is, what do we mean by an administrative officer? And it's defined legal terms down at the bottom. What they mean by an administrative officer shall mean any person who holds a supervisory position of principal or higher rank. In this particular case, if we didn't have that language in there, we couldn't have done what was suggested to be done. So that's why that language is in there.
I mean, the policy is for us, it's not for the public. We do want the public to know it and to understand it, but they're not the ones who are acting upon this. We are.
I mean, I'm glad to bring it back and whatever your wish is, that is fine. I'm just saying that there's a reason why that language is in there. Because the first thing that Erica did when this situation came up is she called me, and I was really proud of her because the first thing she did is she went to the policy. And she said, "This is what it says. This is how I read this. Am I correct?" I said, "Yes." So it worked the way it's intended to, but if you would like to have the committee go back and try to reword it, we certainly will do that. That is absolutely what we'll do.
I would like to see it revised because I'm not sure that I would prefer the principal or higher rank. I mean, who is a higher ranking person? Is a principal a higher rank than a athletic director? Can an athletic director go out and hire his or her child? You know, I think we probably would want that to come to the board for consideration as you know, to be notified for the board as it specifies. I don't want to hire my own child if I work for the school district. It doesn't matter whether I'm a principal or not. I think you shouldn't be using nepotism anyway. So I would be inclined to not reference a supervisory position of principal or higher. I would just say you can't be employed to be supervised by a member of your immediate family. And then if we want to have an exception, as we have in the fourth paragraph, that the school board determines it's in the best interest of the school system is fine. But I'm not sure why we would limit it to principals. Other board members have thoughts? I feel like
I think that,
I can give you an answer to that from my perspective, because principals are ultimately in charge of everything that occurs in his or her building.
Yeah.
And the other person that they're referring to is me. I'm the higher ranking officer than the principal, and I'm ultimately responsible for everything else that happens in the entire district. So that's why that's there.
the principal's the one who actually does the evaluation. They're the ones who recommend. Your peers aren't necessarily the ones who evaluate you. They may give you guidance, they may come in and sit there, watch how you do something, just to kind of do that whole collaboration piece. But the principal's the captain of the ship. And everything that happens within and on the ship is the principal's responsibility.
But bus drivers aren't on the ship. So can the bus drivers?
That's the bus driver, but the bus drivers fall under his purview because he's the admiral of the fleet.
Actually, the transportation director first, and then, which is a shared position. In bus driver's case, transportation director is a shared position.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be, just using her example, bus driver would be through the transportation director first, and then goes further up the chain.
It's just my preference. The board should vote on whatever it wants. I would prefer not to have anybody having supervisory responsibility over an immediate family member unless it comes to the board for an exception. That's just my preference. And I think it's very poorly worded.
Verbose.
I don't know about timing. The only part of, I understand what you're saying, and the only time, I think having the superintendent be able to be involved in that process is important for timing sometimes. I think a hire that you're literally, like the window right in June there when we haven't got a meeting coming up and you've got to make decisions. That definitely comes into play in this. I don't know how that would affect what you're saying, but
Wouldn't affect it at all.
not at all.
Nothing.
Once we have the exception in there, because that has happened, I know of a case or two that we've approved exceptions that kind of critical in a small town when you have limited choices, or maybe the best choices happens to be someone that's related to the boss.
Absolutely.
I'd say the answer to this is if Jay wants to do wording and we want to table it, that's fine. That's my opinion. If he wants to come up with new words and we table this to a future date, that's fine. We could then vote on it again. I don't think it's gonna be.
It's not a showstopper.
No,
It's not a
gonna be,
showstopper.
it's not gonna be critical in the next 30 days. When this gets reaffirmed.
I guess my opinion is that it may be a little wordy, but I think it does work. We have had things come to the board for exceptions and such. But if there is a thought amongst the board to table this and send it back to the committee, I guess we would need a motion and second to do that.
So moved.
I want to say that I want to support his idea of possibly improving it. So I will second his thing only to see what he comes up with for better wording. And so I will second his motion.
I support that, but I want a timeline.
Well, the policy does exist as it is.
Right.
So it does-
Reaffirmation,
right.
it stays in place as is until we change it. Policy committee does have a number of things on this agenda. I'm not sure if it fits into the next
Right.
policy meeting or.
Oh, I mean-
But soon,
Within the next quarter.
yeah.
Well, and typically what we do with the policy committee is we look at sample policies from MSMA and see what the sample policies are, how they've been vetted through the attorneys, see what the language is, and look at how it's different than what's here. And that's great, that's fine.
So I guess I would suggest, since it has been motioned and second to table, do we vote on that?
Yeah.
We do vote on that. Okay, well, let's vote on that first and then we can. Any other discussion about tabling this? All in favor of tabling policy BCC and sending it back to the policy committee?
Sure.
Okay, we'll make that.
Make it better.
Okay. So,
Would it be possible if I'm gonna be drafting something, Peter, could you share with me the MSMA version and, you know, and I'll just pull something together and send it to the policy committee for them to look at, or?
Sure, and typically if something like that happens, if you'd like to attend that policy committee, come to that meeting as a member to present why.
Yeah, it's just hard, we schedule our committees during the workday, so I gotta take a day off to do that, and that's not practical.
we've been doing them virtually as well, so there might be an opportunity to chime in virtually for
Yeah, that'll
15
work.
or 20 minutes in there, we can schedule that. We do have a policy committees meeting scheduled, but, I know we've got other.
That's probably
things
close
to
to
do,
the-
so I'm not sure for some kids.
Close to the-
Okay, all right, so we've tabled that, let's keep going so we can get everybody out of here. Vote on appointments, we have 4 on here. If there's no objection, I would entertain a motion to take them as a lot.
I have one question. Erica, you mentioned that the interventionist, is that the first person on here? Okay,
Yes.
just wanted to make sure that I was tracking that.
Move to take the appointments as a group.
Second.
Motion and second, just want to make sure there's no objections, so as we move forward. Not seeing any, we'll move forward with a vote on that. All in favor of taking the group as Taking them as a group, all right, unanimous. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the group of appointments?
So moved.
Okay. Second.
Motion by Earl, second by John. Any discussion? All in favor of the group of appointments? Unanimous, thank you. Resignations, I see there's 4 of those. Question for Jim, are we gonna have indoor track this year?
Still waiting for guidance from the MPA on that.
Okay, I saw some article in the paper that's obviously a big question mark.
That's our hope.
Colleges.
God, I hope
We don't even know the
so.
conference, we haven't heard.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
God, I hope so.
So, obviously, some very good people on here, and we thank them for their service in those roles, and wish them well. And I think everybody's probably still with us on one paper and we're doing other jobs. Any other business that we need to discuss? None?
There was one piece of information in the packet, the COVID-19 vaccine education. Was that in here just for our information or potentials to how we want to proceed, or?
So that information in your packet is an opportunity to inform parents and have them receive information about the vaccine for ages 5 to 11. So we will have information on our website, get that information out to the parents so they can read about it before the clinic is held. To try to answer some of the questions, like the comments that you heard this evening, so that we can answer some of those questions prior to.
Actually, I had two quick questions about this.
Yeah.
It looks like you did too.
What's that?
I had a couple of questions about this.
Yeah, because I love the idea of getting a Dr. Diaz here or somebody and allowing him to answer questions if he would be amenable to that.
Have like a forum.
Right.
Are you talking in reference to when it does become eligible for the younger students? Is that?
Right, once the vaccine's been approved, taking advantage of option number 1, host a healthcare professional at a faculty meeting of some form, where, people have the opportunity to ask questions. Now, whether that's a school medical people or somebody from Maine General.
Are you saying that the first part you just want the faculty, not the third open community with the community forum? Which one are you proposing?
Yeah, you're correct, John. I would actually probably want to go with 3 and 4, because I think that it would alleviate concerns.
So invite a healthcare professional to a family conference is what the Tammy Diaz was leaning towards doing.
Okay. Was
having an evening that would be virtual, where people could do their, ask their questions through the chat, and then somebody would be watching the chat, and they would answer those questions through the chat to those who wanted to do that. That was the thought, was to do it, set up that forum.
So it wouldn't be, everyone on the chat would not be able to do voice, it would just be limited to.
Yeah, it's kind of how we do,
texting.
right, it's kind of how we do the larger meetings like that.
Right.
Because then, so somebody watches the chat and they answer the questions.
And they can post up their questions in advance, they can have them.
Good idea.
Yeah. All right.
So that is what Tammy was gonna pursue, Earl, so is that the one that you're in favor of?
Oh, absolutely. I think more information is a better thing.
My question was more about, again, clarity and understanding. I think if we're putting this up on a website or someplace, we should say what PIRG is, because I don't know what that is. The US PIRG Education Fund, it would be nice to know what that means. And also when it comes to experts, the American Academy of Pediatrics is considered, as far as I'm concerned, the experts in pediatrics. I'm sure there is an American Association of Pediatrics, but I've never heard of them before. So, I'm looking, we use the CDC because I think they're the experts. Here, we don't have the American Academy of Pediatrics. This group, I mean, I don't know who they are. I'm sure they exist, but I'd rather if it was the academy that we were following rather than some group. Unless maybe this group is now more important than the academy, but the academy is the experts, as I understand it, in pediatrics. And I think just because we have people citing people that I don't think are experts, I think we should be very careful that if we're citing people, we are citing people that we're confident are the experts.
No, I agree. This is something that Tammy pulled off for me at the last minute on Friday. And we just wanted to get it into your packets as options as to what we could do to educate, try to educate people. But I agree, we would have to have that definition spelled out.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, since we have no other business, our next meeting is scheduled for November 22nd at 6 o'clock. It does say the high school media center. I guess we'll see if we stay in this venue or we'll go over there. We anticipated potential for a larger crowd here, so we stayed in this venue just in case. And I don't know if that's all right. So. Very good. If there is nothing else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion to adjourn. All right, who's gonna do it?
I'll
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Vivian?
Man, it's an early one. It's only 8:10.
Oh, not too bad.
I know, stranger.